Okay, I've got Adrienne back with me. We've wiped the chalkboard and put, excuse me, some new stuff up here. Rate study. Okay, Adrienne, I love the last one so much on time blindness. Now, here's our nitty gritty. Let's get down to it. Take it
Okay.
away, Adrienne.
So I know this is what everybody's always asking for is what do I charge per hour? And uh, I would love to give you just a brilliant secret sauce number and just throw it right out there. Unfortunately, it's got a little bit more complexity to that. So my goal with this is to show you how to do it for yourself. You will need to reevaluate as you carry on through your life, through your business, your various business goals, and also what services you're offering. Because as you add more services, you might have more needs. So if you add on day of services for steaming and stuff like that, you're going to have more expenses. You'll have mileage, you'll have stuff like that to add on that will be beyond what's here. So the
Okay.
goal again is just to give you more of a picture of what these things are. Traditionally in business, there is overhead, which is everything that it costs to run your business. And whenever I mention that in any sort of sewing group, people will be like, oh, well, I work from home, I don't have overhead. And that's the biggest mistruth in the world. You have overhead even if you work at home.
Yes, you do.
So overhead includes everything that your business requires from you financially to exist. If you don't pay rent, that's fine. You still have needs. You still have something that you're supporting. And your future business goals rely on a complete picture now so you can grow into that later. Because if you don't, you might not know how to save money for things like that and to establish that you have money to pay rent someday. So, depending on what you want to do with your business, you might want that in the future. So, you have to think about it ahead and plan for it ahead because otherwise, when you get to those different parts of your business milestones, you might all of a sudden be having to mark up your prices like 200%, which feels crazy. So, this will
Right.
help you kind of, you know, temper into it so you don't feel nuts either, which is great. Now, I'm calling this a rate study because we are evaluating what you need. And this is basics. I have the complete bare bones on here. And you also have to figure out what time period you're going to use to evaluate your rate. Now, you can work this math from a couple different directions based on what you already know and what you're looking to find out. So
Okay.
this is the only time I like math because we're trying to solve for something important. Otherwise, I should caveat, I should say out loud, I'm not a mathematician. Um, and if I do anything wrong, that's totally fine. I'm a human person with a calculator doing my best. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a picture of month. So one calendar month. Um, we're going to look at all the things that our business needs to take in order to cover our paycheck, our supplies, maintenance, and our tools. And like I said, this is not rent, this is not savings, this is basic. So if you don't believe you have overhead, you at least have these. And anything that you add on to this is just going to add on to your final number. So under the supplies section, I'm just going to give a little brief definition of what each of these are. So supplies are things that you consume. So you use them up, they go away, like thread and boning and interfacing supplies. So stuff like the haberdashery, if you will, stuff that goes away after you use it one time. So your wall back order, for example, is mostly all of your supplies. Um, your maintenance section is anything related to your sewing machine, your steamer, um, your big pieces of equipment, your ironing board can kind of be included in there. You can put some of those in different categories as long as they're accounted for somewhere. Doesn't matter necessarily where they go. This is just so you understand that like once a year you might need a new iron. Once a year you might need a new steamer hose, All that kind of stuff's got to add up somewhere. So we're going to do these as parts. So we're going to attribute a little bit of money per month to these sections. Like I said, this isn't savings, but it's kind of planning ahead for a purchase at the end of the year.
Okay.
At the end of the year is usually when you should buy bigger stuff that you need, just so that it can be put on your taxes for the next year and stuff. So having that accounted for means that if your steamer dies, if your iron dies during the year, you can afford to buy one, and it doesn't come out of your pay, your take home money. Because me, as an employee of my business, I shouldn't be buying new supplies for my business. My business should be supplying the things. Now,
Absolutely.
this is hard to think about because if you're the only one running your business, it feels weird to say that. I've had to explain this to my mom for so many years, and I haven't found a good way to explain it to her. She goes, "Well, you're the only one in your business, so isn't that all of your money that you make?" I said, "No. All the money that I bring in belongs to my business. I pay myself a piece of it. I don't want to pay for all of my other stuff at my, like, if I worked for a job, like, outside of myself, I don't want to bring a mop and a bucket. I don't want to bring paper towels and trash bags to my place of business. That's their job, not mine." So stepping out and thinking of your business as a business in this is critical, because I think that's where a lot of money gets lost too. Because if
Okay.
you're paying for the trash bags for your business from your own pocket, you're not actually making that money then. That's coming out of your take. And then we have, let's see here. Oh, our tools, our actual tool section. So I think I would put some of these in different categories here. So our tools are non-replaceable or non-consumable items like your iron, mats, tables. And if you want to buy a new table, that's where that money will come from. If you want to buy new lights, that's where that's going to come from. If you don't allocate a little bit of money towards those items, you won't have them. So they have to be thought of somewhere, because I think at any point we are all needing things.
Yes.
And, a Z rack, we need a new Z rack. We need the extenders and the Z rack. Um, you need a couple of $100 to load yourself up with racks.
Yep.
Where
Yep.
is
You
that money
do.
going to come from? So this is accounting for all of these items and your pay, or the pay of your employees. So if you have 2 employees, you have to put 2 sets of money down here. Now, this is different compared to a traditional business book. It doesn't include um, employment. Your paycheck money does not, payroll, there you go, words. Payroll is not part of overhead. I'm not calling this overhead. This is just a snapshot of everything. Because people are so resistant to want to call this overhead, this is just the snapshot of everything that we need to take home to find our hourly rate. And
Okay.
then this is where these are literally all variables based on, who you are and what you offer. But how much money do you want to take home? And this is fun because you get to decide what do you want to take home? What's your pay? And then how many hours do you have available to work every month? So sometimes when there's too many variables, it gets hard, because where do you start? You can start anywhere that you want to on here, which is awesome. So if you have only 20 hours to work, you can write a big 20 right here. And then if you want to have a high rate, medium, low, you can pick whatever rate you want. And that's how much money you'll be able to make for yourself per month. So if you're just trying to hit a certain number, or if you just have a certain availability, you can work this whichever way you need to. And you can do this differently at different times in your life. And this also helps you when you pick up a ticket and hold it in your hand and say, oh, it's a $500 ticket. You can look at it with some level of confidence and say, oh, this dress should take me about 4 or 5 hours to do, whatever your rate is divided in there. You can get a guess based on that, because your rate is associated with time and hours and covering your business. You'll have a clue instead of picking up a dress ticket and not having any clue. If you can have a clue from it, it's better than not having one.
True.
Sometimes a dress takes longer than you think, but at least you'll have a baseline. So these all kind of go hand in hand with each other. All right. So I wrote down some basics, and these are, like I said, they're going to be different for everybody, so don't laugh. I did a estimate of how much I buy from Wallback per year and divided it out so that it's about a monthly, because I don't order every month. I feel like I order maybe 3 times, 3 or 4 times, and I usually my orders are around $60 or so. But that $100 for free shipping is super tempting. So
It sure is.
sometimes I'm doing that too. So what I did was I broke down over the year, I put about $240 for supplies divided by 12, gives us about $20. And honestly, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's $20 a month that's not coming out of your pocket, which is great.
Yes.
Maintenance, again, if you have industrial machines that need maintenance and you learn how to do it yourself, you still need to count for the time that you're spending doing that. So don't discount it just because you're the one doing the maintenance. I put about $15 on that. If I get the oil change professionally here, that's what it would come out to for 1 year. So 15, I just kept it real simple. These are going to get bigger as you add more things on. And then tools. I factored, if you get one new table and one new iron for the year, anywhere from $16 to $20 you can save. Okay, so let's put 20 on there just as a basic. And remember, this is not rent. This is one employee. This is working from home. This is very sleek, very slim. And then your hours on here. So what do you want to make? How many hours do you want to work? I wrote on here as a basic person, because I've been trying to watch how many hours people work and what capacities they work their businesses to, because I wanted to get some ideas for pictures. So I wrote on here for an 80-hour a month. So it's like really slim, like 20 hours a week kind of a vibe. An 80-hour a month situation. And now we can just solve for how much the hourly rate would end up being. And then let me see here. If you're wanting to do 3,000, I feel like $3,000 is kind of like a normal amount of money people need to make to live nowadays. Is that wild?
No, that is not wild. It's tragic, but it's true.
I feel like that's kind of, in order to be a live human person anymore, you need about $3,000 a month to live. And again, I don't know if that's going to include your house, what your goals are for a home. So after we do the math on this, I'm telling you, this number is not one that I agree with. You should be higher than this number. This is bare bones numbers. Okay. This per month and divided out is $38. That's it.
Per hour.
Per hour.
If you are working 20 hours a week. Okay.
Yeah. So this is your monthly picture. This is what you could be billing out and paying yourself a portion to get this 3,000 as your billable rate. This is incredibly low. I disagree with this number. This number is appropriate if you're one of those ladies who feels like you deserve less because you live in a poor area or something like that. Bless you. Call me. I will pep talk you into a good number because you deserve more than this number. This is baseline. But this is where if you're not charging correctly and you're not covering these things, it's coming directly out of your money. And you'll feel that. You'll be making a lot less than this 3,000 that you're trying to take home and wondering why it feels yucky. So that's where that comes in. Now, let's do math in a different direction. Because I know some of us put in 40 hours a week. So we can do this in a different way than figure out what our potential is. So you can figure out the other direction. If I work this many hours, how much money could I make? So let's say you're putting in, what's 40 hours? I'm doing my math on my calculator here because, again, I'm not great at math. And you don't have to be great at math to do this. You just have to care about yourself. Okay. So we do 40 hours and most months have 4 weeks in them. It means you're working 160 hours. 160. Okay, and then if we are doing our, I would say a normal rate for a lot of seamstresses is around $75 a billable, like a number.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen anywhere from 50 to 75, depending on, what's going on in the world. So let's write 50 as our base here. And also this can have some variable. I feel like custom needs to be a higher rate as well. So you can have two rates you charge people. If you're doing the standard alterations, you can do a $50 an hour price model for yourself for that. And if you have custom, like if no one in your area can do it, but you can, that's when you need to hit like a $75 an hour or just a higher price point. Doesn't have to, if 75 scares you, that's fine too. I get it. Okay. So let's see. 160 times 50. Okay. You'll be working a lot. And then we have, so that gives you 8,000 as your take home for you. And then, oh, that might be too low. 8,000 is your take home for yourself. That's in a month. And then you'll be billing out because you want to cover all these items still, plus your 20, plus your 15, plus your other 20. So you'll be taking in, and it's not even that much, but that's $55. You're not having to give away of your own money, which adds up. So I think that also had a little bit of bleed out. Let's see, 12 times 55. So basically, if you didn't charge this $55, if you weren't accounting for this over the course of the year, you are giving away 660 of your own dollars to run your business. That's a car payment. That's one car payment, like on a low to medium sized car. There's some car payments out there that are extreme. So you could effectively be losing one car payment for yourself by not accounting for this money. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't look like a lot to begin with. These are small numbers. We have $20, we have $15, but do we? Should our business be providing that? Absolutely. And like I said, as these get bigger, at some point, you're going to be here. You're going to be here. You could be here. You could be, you never know where your business is going to take you. You might get to a place where you have some rent, you have an employee, you could grow your business to sell it. But if you don't account for these things, you will not be able to do that because you don't have the money. And also not having the money means you don't have the interest. I feel like we've all had a dress or two where we know we didn't charge enough and then we skip it. You skip that bag a couple of times before you get to it. You open it and you're like, oh, I gotta work on that dress. That like dread because you didn't price it correctly or you discounted or something like that. That dread feeling. Even if you don't admit it to yourself, we all have projects that are like that. And that's just kind of, it's hard to think about because it sounds like a failing or a failure. And it's not, it's just something you have to put some time looking at it.
Okay.
And this money, this is nothing to blink at. This is, if you can make yourself like, the person who lives this kind of life, who has a full 40 hours to just be dealing with clients, like I don't have that right now personally, but like that could be a small section in your life when you're, either child free or you're older and your kids are out of your house. You could be saving for a home. You could be saving for a guest home or a vacation. Like all these things you can build and have for yourself are possible if you do this math a few times. And like I said, I don't like math, but I like the idea of what I can build with this if I just do a little bit of math poorly. You don't even have to do this excellently. You can do this poorly. It's fine. And it also, like I said, it helps grease these paths in your mind for what's possible for you.
Yes.
It's so hard to find someone who's living the exact life that you want to have, to copy them exactly. And you'll see little pieces of things on other people's lives. You're like, oh, maybe I want that. This is how you can get to some of those things that you want. I want a nice pantry someday. This is how I'm going to get my nice pantry. Like if I work hard and I make these things possible, I don't drive the nicest car, but someone might want a really nice car. This is how you get that. Someone might have a bunch of kids and not enough time to work. If you're charging $38 an hour and you only have a little bit of time to work, you are not capitalizing on the preciousness of your time.
It's so
Um,
true.
Daycare is $1 million, you know.
Yeah.
If you are a stay-at-home mom that's wanting to sew for a few hours at night so that you don't have to put your kids in daycare, your time is a premium.
Yeah.
It is a premium. And I know everybody's going to say, oh, it's a factor of your skill level and, your area. Those are some factors, but they're not the complete picture. They're not the whole
No.
story. And you shouldn't let those things bully you into charging super low just because of this or just because of that. Bridal is a beautiful luxury industry, no matter where you live and no matter what your workplace looks like. I hear people all the time like, oh, well, I'm fitting people for my living room. Okay, and you might not always be fitting people from your living room. Someday you might have a tiny studio if you want one. Do you want one? If you don't, that's cool. If you want one, this is how you're going to be able to build yourself into that. And so it helps you kind of align some of those things with each other, which I think is exciting. I'm willing to do the math on that
Yeah.
anytime, you know. If you want to build a casita in your backyard so that you can have fittings on your property in a separate quiet, this is how you get there. You do some math. And you know what the fun part is about this is you can use your own money to build your business if you want to. It's an option. It's not an obligation. I
Right.
put some of my own money back in my business when I want to because I get excited and I
Yeah.
want to buy this or that or I want to do this or that because I know that if I spend this $200, I could make this into like um double. I can double it. It's an easy gamble if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Betting on yourself is usually a good option because we
It's
know we can work hard. We know our
yes.
capabilities. And
Yes.
I feel like it's just kind of sky is the limit then when you think about it. And that's exciting, you know.
Yes.
Some goals will take you longer to get to, absolutely. Because if you have a big goal, if you want to buy a building, oh man, buildings are expensive. Um, and property tax, all those things. But that's where this list will get bigger and you'll charge for it. And it will
That's
be
right.
covered and it will be fine. Big shops, bridal shops, they do $180 an hour. Now, does everybody go there for their alterations? No, they don't. You'll figure out which piece of the pie is yours. There's enough. There is enough for everybody. You'll
There's
figure out,
more than enough. More
yeah,
than enough.
more than enough. Even if you're in a rural area, I feel like if you're in a rural area, you're almost more valuable because where else are you going to go? I was trying to help a
So
bride
true.
find a seamstress near her, and she was in some part of Wyoming, and there was nothing near her. She was
No.
willing to fly back here for an appointment, and I was just like, "There's got to be someone near." There was nobody
Do you
near.
do you want to hear a funny Wyoming story?
Oh my
Okay,
God,
I
yes,
have a cabin in Pinedale, Wyoming, and I had a bride call me who was planning on coming down to Utah in Cache Valley to my home to have her fitting done. And I'm like, do you realize I'm in town right now? And it was it was crazy.
that's
Um,
awesome.
so you just and here's the craziest part of it. She's like, "Well, I haven't got my dress yet. I won't have it until such and such day." And I said, "Oh, I won't be up here by then. The cabin closes." And she says, "I don't mind driving." So she was going to drive 6 hours to come to my, and she did. And I get a lot of Wyoming brides, and they are used to driving a long time to get anywhere. A lot of Wyoming people drive to Cache Valley to get groceries. I mean,
That's see, and
that's
each of
crazy.
these stories is going to be unique, and
Yeah.
that's where a business book would not help because if I had that kind of audience to serve, I mean, that's a different, I would make a dip. So if I had clients that I knew that were driving from that far away, I would maybe make my appointment longer so they could sit and rest when they got there. I would make a killer bathroom so they could refresh.
Yes.
I'd probably
First
have,
thing they have to do always is
yes.
everybody needs to hit the bathroom. And I do a lot of times on their follow-up, their first fitting one, we take our time, but on their follow-up, I usually do either a lunch or a dinner, and we schedule them just before lunch, like 11 o'clock, and then I have them go to lunch and I scramble. And while they're at lunch, any adjustments that need to be done, if at all possible. Sometimes that's not, but a lot of times
Mhm.
I'm like, just go to lunch and I'll call you when it's done. And then they come back
Yes.
because it just seems courteous to them. And I don't mind um, getting it done and out the
No,
door.
I love that too. And like as a human person, I love when I can double dip an appointment, when I can, if I'm driving somewhere, I will look around to see like what restaurants are there so that I
Right.
can, really make use of that time. So that's the beauty of all this that we're doing, is that this is meant to help us run our business better, to provide better for our client experience too, and for us, because getting a dress done and out the door at the final, absolutely. Yes.
Hmm.
I have
Yes.
clients that drive just about like 2 hours, either from north or from south. I get either from Flagstaff or from Tucson. And I will do the same thing where I'm trying to like account for like, let's do it around a lunchtime or like a shopping. I live near some really good shopping.
Hmm.
Um, Stuff like that will change. Again, that how we're talking about time blindness, that will make the final fitting be longer. And so
Right.
stuff like that being accounted for is really important, again, because we don't want to be rushing. We want to be able to provide all these nice things.
Hmm.
And even if you can't provide all that nice stuff now, if you know that that's a pattern for your brides for the future, you can start building that. And that's exciting. Ah,
Yeah.
I almost start talking too fast because I get excited. Like that to me, um, is the joy of what we do and sustaining it through business goals. But like I said, this feels, and maybe it's not, maybe it just feels different. It feels so unique because most businesses, their client interaction is some simple steps that aren't as lengthy. There's not a variety. And I feel like that does give us a challenge
Hmm.
because we have all different kinds of brides that we service. Now, if you get brides in your area that are just coming from one store, maybe it's a little bit easier. Um, but it's not impossible to do. And
Right.
even though this might seem boring, because I know math and numbers aren't always a blast. Um, and my accountant, she would laugh so hard if she knew I was giving people any sort of advice like this, because she knows how I struggle. But this is so important to look at on your own because only you really know the intricacies of your brides and your business that you're doing.
Yeah.
And getting out of your head in order to see this, I feel like is not something we do because we're stuck in the sewing of it so much. We're in the dress. I just want to be sewing. If I could just be sewing all day, I would. But who else is going to do these numbers for me? And in a way
Right.
that I believe is correct. Because if somebody else were to look at my business, I don't know that they would get it. You know,
Yeah.
why do I need
Maybe
my
another
shirt to be all?
seamstress. We get each other, but
Yeah,
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 outside of our business, they don't, and they don't understand that some dresses, zippy zoo, it's in, it's out, goodbye. And then other ones are like, ah,
yeah.
ah, either,
And
and so
to that,
sometimes pricing just gets messy and you just have to have a disposition of acceptance. And
yeah,
sometimes it's, it goes by the book and it's perfect. And yeah, but these rates, your business rate, and letting your business kind of build those supply things in and you get a paycheck from your business. That's what you're talking about here, right? This is
absolutely.
so important for us to understand and take ourselves seriously as far as that's
It's
real.
true. And like I said, and if you need to be able to separate this out from yourself, make this an employee.
Yeah.
If you need to separate it out, if it's too hard to do from an emotional aspect, then separate it out. You'll be
Okay.
just fine. Think about if this was for me or for Dee Dee or for somebody else that you care about. Price it that way. If you are struggling with your confidence level or anything like that, what would you do for someone else till you learn that you're the most important part of your business? You are the irreplaceable part of your business. When people go to sell their businesses, a lot of times it's just these things that they can sell. You can't sell the you part.
Right.
You know, your business ends up being just what it's worth for the supplies and, machinery. You're the important part and you pay yourself the least. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If like you're the irreplaceable piece that needs to be there, you're the secret sauce. And I get the shyness that we feel about that. I've been there in my journey too, where you're like, don't look at me, you know. Um, and I'm still not all the way to the other side where I'm like, my branding doesn't have my face on it or anything like that. I'm not to that level either. But if you want to grow it, this is how you do it. And especially if you want to sell it later, I see a lot of people that are retiring, they're trying to sell their business and they can't
Yeah.
sell their business because they didn't build it as one.
That is so profound. That is really important for us to remember, especially at my age. That's really important.
Yeah, and that
Very
sounds like a
important.
judgment. I'm not trying to be judgy, but it ends up being like liquidation. So you're just selling your supplies because there's nothing tangible to your business to sell because you're your best employee and what you're retiring. So the best part of the business is gone.
Right.
What else is there? So like I said, that's just going to depend on what your vision is for your business, and it will change through the course of your life. I have wanted to do so many different things with my business over the years. I've had all different ideas. I've been able to do some of them. Some of them fell away because they ended up being not important to me after all. And again, that flexibility is incredible. I don't feel like there's any other job I could do that would
Yeah.
um, have that component to
Yeah.
it.
And it's true. And it's not like your skills get outdated over time. And,
No.
I've done this from nursing a baby to taking care of my parents, changing their diapers, and then to having full. I'm retired. My husband's retired. I'm here. I wish I was retired. I am not. But I've raised those kids. I had the tweener where I had my parents and my teenagers, and now it's just me and my husband, and I've been able to work this job beautifully with that flexibility. And it does change. It changes, and how many hours I can take as compared to what I used to be able to take. It's the flexibility and the fact that I don't have to retrain. My skills just build. It's
Yes.
not like you leave the market for 3 or 4 years, and then when you come back, you've slid back and have
Yes.
to relearn how computer technology works nowadays or things like that.
Absolutely.
This is one
Absolutely.
of those that just keeps growing and growing and growing.
It's so true. Like we've had to learn how to work with like sheer bodices because that's different, but
Yes.
it's not all
Oh,
the stuff that we're starting from scratch on,
right.
which is great. And I just feel like, how everybody says our industry is dying and that's incorrect. I feel like there's something magical in the fact that people underestimate us.
This the, we, there are not enough of us,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean we're dying. We're needed
Now,
more
I
than
think
ever.
I think we exist in the quiet because we're busy selling. But like I said, there's such magic to that,
Yeah.
and bringing the business angle into it, I think will help strengthen a lot of people
Hmm.
and make this more attractive overall as a job.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to start saying the numbers are fun instead of saying that they're not, because I'm not a boring person and I feel like numbers can be boring, but this
Hmm.
gets exciting. And if you talk about your business with numbers and it excites you, that's how you know you're in the right place. It's got to be,
Yeah.
right? That's got to
That's when your
be,
pricing's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's got to be confirmation of that. Because why else would you be doing math casually
That
otherwise?
that is
But
true.
there's so many beautiful places this can take you. So don't let the numbers get you nervous or worried or scared. Um, they should get you nervous with excitement of what you can offer to your brides and, to yourself with this type of flexible freedom. And I know when everybody says that, it's always something weird. They're like, buy all this stuff and have it at your home and try to sell it. This is entirely different
Right.
than anything like that. This is just, what do you want to offer to people? How often do you want to offer it? And how much do you want to make?
Right.
It's really
Yeah, you
simple and
decide your
lovely.
price. There's enough business out there for everybody.
Yeah.
You just decide what you wanna be paid, what you're worth, and please don't underestimate your worth. Um, yeah. I
Yeah.
will say this over and over. This isn't our worth isn't we need to have that mentality of supply and demand,
Yeah.
which is a major part of pricing. I mean, true, luxury pricing is based on supply and demand, and we are a luxury service that is very short in supply and very high in demand.
Yeah. I
And
can't book everyone that wants in.
we need to comprehend that and that this is a really sweet business to be in
It
if you
is.
price it right. If
Yes.
you
And
price it right.
how you just mentioned our worth, I feel like that's the stumbling block, because your worth as a person has nothing to do with your worth as a worker. But
Mhm.
you need to have self-worth. You need to be able to love yourself and come from that place in order to price yourself strongly, because your time is valuable. You could go take a nap instead.
This is so true.
You could do anything else with your time, and you have chosen to do this with it. So what does your time mean to you as
Yeah.
a person? And when I was young, I wasn't needed. No one needed me. I could charge things low because I didn't understand what my time was worth. And maybe it wasn't worth much because I was young. As I get older, as I need more from life, as people need more from me, my time has become super limited and super valuable.
Yeah.
And I have always been on that journey of like self-love and, worth. Again, it gets jumbled in with money because we think, oh, I'm not worth $50 an hour.
Heck
It's
yes,
like,
you are.
it's like, oh, I know, I get what you're saying. You as a person don't feel like you have earned. So separating that out is really, really challenging for a lot of folks. And it's not impossible to do. But you know what? You won't know until you try it.
That's true.
Um, some years ago, I made that pricing spreadsheet to give an idea to people who were struggling what you might charge.
Mhm.
And over the years, 'cause I think it's been 2 years now,
Mhm.
over the years, people will message me saying, I found your spreadsheet, I've been using it, and it changed everything.
Mhm.
And all it took was them to just try one dress at a time, one bride at a time. And they're like, I couldn't pay for this myself. And I was like, well, you're not the one paying for it though. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of times we're trying to sell from our own pocket. I can't afford some of these tickets that I work on either. Like,
Mhm.
you know, um, that doesn't mean someone else doesn't see the value in that.
This is a luxury service. It's not meant for everybody. You don't have to stoop to the lowest common denominator. Just
Yeah.
remember you're a luxury service.
Yes. And
You're not for everybody.
if you want to be, or if your area requires of you, if you feel like you need to be for everyone, just know then you will have some limitations on your time and your amount of money you'll be able to bring in. Just like
Mhm.
you will have to make peace with the fact that maybe you won't be able to grow in some certain areas. And that sounds really sad, but like, how sometimes things just they are what they are.
Yeah,
If you genuinely believe that you cannot charge more, then you have to make that peace with yourself. And if you are unable to make peace with yourself, it's because part of you knows that that's not true.
that
So
is true. It isn't. And you know what?
usually,
I would rather do one dress and be paid decently than do 10 dresses feeling like a slave. Um, and do something else with the rest of my time,
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
I don't have to just work this. I would rather find that one person who will appreciate my time than try and cater to everyone's budget and do everybody's stuff.
And I think that's a product of where you're at in your sewing journey too.
It's true. I
You
am at
know,
that point, and
and
I
that's
actually have the
beautiful.
luxury of more time than probably you do right now,
Ugh.
but I also value my time more, and I want a nap. I will take a nap than a fitting, just about every day, and
Yes.
because that's also part of where I'm at with my time.
Yeah.
That nap is worth what I would be
Yeah.
making doing a fitting.
Exactly. And I am perfectly aged. I am part of what used to be hustle culture. So
Mhm.
I know how to work myself to the bone. I've done it and I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like financially. I know how deep I can go. And I'm glad I know that so that I can compare what it feels like to not do that and see the difference.
Yes.
I do feel like some of those ups and downs are really important to feel on your body. When you're really exhausted,
Yeah.
if you open your bank account and it looks good and you're like, yeah, then okay, maybe you're willing to trade some of your personal comfort for that money that you've hustled hard for. But if you
Yeah.
open your bank account and you're like, if it does not line up, then something is amiss with your math
Yep.
because the extreme exhaustion and mental fatigue happening during the middle of bridal or prom season or whatever, it has to have a financial equal. It has to show
Right.
something because otherwise you're just suffering, you know?
Right.
It
Suffering
has to be,
needlessly.
yes, it
Yeah.
has to mean something. Um, because there's no like you can't take your suffering to the bank. Like
No.
your electricity company doesn't care that you worked hard. They want the dollar that you worked hard
Right.
for. That's just how the world works. And again, when you run a business and it's just you, it's hard to remember that you're a business, but you're a business. No
Yeah.
matter where you are or what you're doing, you're a business person. Um,
Yes.
I know everybody's like, oh, well, I don't have an LLC. I don't have, not registered, not whatever. You'll get there. If you want to get there,
Yes.
you
And
can get there,
yeah.
but you have to start seeing yourself as that so that you can act appropriately, you know?
And price appropriately.
Exactly.
This is
So,
awesome.
and like I said, if anybody ever needs a pep talk on this, I feel like absolutely, because like this is hard to kind of do by yourself. Um, the numbers seem weird when you're like, am I doing this right? There's no teacher that's going to come around and say, yes, you did good or no, you did bad. You'll know at the end of the season when you're tired and you're looking at your bank. That's your that's your letter grade. Your letter
Yeah,
grade is your bank number when you're done.
it's true.
So,
Well, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much, Adrienne. This is awesome. I appreciate you so much. And I think everyone will have got a lot of information out of here and hopefully a lot of heart from you. You're always so encouraging and insightful into the feelings behind the pricing. I really love that part of you. And and I just love you so much. And thank you so much, Adrienne.